Hello and welcome back to N2 the Chatterverse, where two gents share their 2 cents on pop media. I am Victor Dandridge, the hardest working man in comics.
And I'm Bill, and I now know exactly how a dog's going to act if they have superpowers.
Ladies and gents, we are like literally minutes after watching Superman for the first time. We went to the special Amazon Prime premiere, and yeah, there was some good crypto action in that one for sure. Okay, so initial reaction. If you were to give it a scale, and obviously, guys, we're going to do some spoilers, not a whole bunch, but some spoilers. If you were to scale it 1 to 10, what do you give this one?
I give it a 7 or 8.
This is why we're friends. This is why we're friends. I'm giving it a hard 7, but I'm stopping at 7. There was something missing for me. And I think the best way that I can describe it is as entertaining as it was not an iconic presentation of characters. And I think I was looking for something a little bit more iconic, and that's just not what this movie is. So that's why it's a 7 for me.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah. Was there anything in particular that stood out to you that gave you the 7 to 8 range?
It was that the characters were fallible.
Okay.
They don't always have the answer to every problem.
That is so true.
And it shows when Superman's battling.
Yeah. I thought that was an interesting sort of move. I did appreciate the setup of why this particular iteration of Superman might not be as skilled as we have seen him in comics, in the past or whatever. It does make it interesting though when you have that context of All-Star Superman, which is arguably Superman at probably his most potent skill set ever as the inspiration for this. I think that's one of the most fascinating things where you can read that book, see him at his most powerful, but still get the inspiration to kind of show him at his earliest stage and go, this makes sense.
Yeah.
This is the same thing.
Yeah.
Which I think is very interesting, and I don't demean any of the storytelling that happened to get us there. There were a number of things that we've seen for months now. The crypto scene with the out in the ice in the Arctic.
Yeah.
I appreciate it.
That's exactly how a dog would act.
Yeah, 1,000,000%.
Yes.
But what I really like is we get that out of the way really early.
Yeah.
That was fantastic. Yeah. Like all the things that we've already seen kind of happen like really early on, so that way you get something fresh for the rest of the movie. And that made me
that goes to a lot of people are like, they're showing us too much. They're showing us too much. And like, you don't know what they're showing you.
So true.
Yeah.
So
and
true.
I get it. Cause in 2.5 minutes, you can show an awful lot of the movie. And they did show an awful lot of the movie, but they didn't show everything.
They literally, I don't even know if they really touched the plot.
No, they didn't touch
all the
the plot
things that they gave us, which again, I have to commemorate. That was a very awesome move because we're going into this pretty much wide open. We have no idea what exactly to expect. And that was really cool. I really appreciated that one. Were there any characters besides Crypto, because he was the best, that you liked in this one?
Mr. Terrific.
Mr. Terrific was fun. His attitude was great.
Oh, and it like I said to you, this is the first time in my life I ever cared about Mr. Terrific.
Yes. No, Edie was fantastic in a role. Ate up every opportunity that he got to make people be like, excuse me, like, do you not know who I am? Michael Holt. I am the 3rd smartest person on this planet.
Well, the thing that really kills me is that I don't think I've liked him in anything.
Really?
But that may be more the characters that he plays. Fair. And I was just like, because I was totally expecting, happy-go-lucky, aw shucks kind of Mr. Terrific, and that's not what we got.
Not at all. That was a lot of fun. I think a lot of people are going to love Nathan Fillion's Guy Gardner for all the wrong reasons.
Yeah, I think they nailed Guy Gardner
perfectly. You know what? I think we talked about this before. I wasn't loving Nathan as Guy Gardner as a casting choice, but he was perfect because I still am holding on to a very dimly lit, very quickly burning candle of him as Hal Jordan because I've liked him as the voice acting for Hal Jordan. It works. His role as Mal in Firefly and Serenity, very Hal Jordan-esque, but this works really well. There are a couple of faces that he made that I was like, man, I want to punch you so bad.
Yeah.
I want to Batman punch you. It was fun. It was very, very fun. Did you feel like at all that the amount of characters that we, got introduced to in this movie, was it ever too much for you?
I don't think so.
Because
I think they kept it to a minimum, and then there were, a few cameos in there.
Yeah.
Some of them you're going to know, some you're not going to know, which is fine.
Yeah.
It's a very good introduction of Metamorpho.
Yeah,
I thought.
Yeah, it was.
Not how I was expecting that character to go. In fact, I
Agreed.
could have said that about just about all of them.
Literally everybody
Outside of Guy Gardner.
That's true. That's very, very true.
And Black Canary. I mean, Hawkwoman.
Ooh, okay. If we're gonna gripe at all, we got to start with that.
Oh, it's the screech. Just
Why is she screeching?
What is going on?
I don't understand why that was even happening.
Yeah.
Like when it first happened, I was like, okay, she's in the midst of battle, and that's what that is. But when it kept happening, I'm like, she doesn't need to scream to fly. She's not Banshee. Like, I don't understand why this is happening. That bothered me. The other thing that bothered me, and this is gonna be so bad. I hated that the Kents had an accent and Clark didn't. I hated it.
I didn't even think about that.
Oh, because now, with all due respect to the idea, they played up the Kansas country farm, voice of them so hard that I wanted it to be, even if it was just like a little bit when they go back, that Clark slips and starts sounding maybe a little bit with a twang, but he never does.
No.
And I looked for it because I'm like, oh man, his parents are super, like both of them. Like, it's not even like just one of them might be, the other one might have a little city voice. Both of them have such a country twang. And for him not to have one at all, I was like, that disappointed me.
Yeah, I get that.
Yeah.
That's a fair judgment, I think.
Because again, not to get too deep into the spoilers, I do think that in this iteration, there was a line that was said, and it stuck to me immediately, and it was the idea of him not or being wrong in terms of thinking of what he was. And he's like, this is the first time I've ever felt that. I'm like, no, it's the second time you've ever felt that. When you grew up, you thought you were a regular little boy. You had no idea anything otherwise. And then you found out that you had alien parents. Everything else ... is an aftermath of that first revelation that you were not what you thought you were, because there was nothing in the Kent's format, showcase, or anything that showed that they raised you as anything other than a regular little boy. Mm-hmm. The moment you found out that you weren't, that's the first time that you get.
Do we know when he figured out one?
No.
So,
that luckily did not get stated, because then it would have just irked me more. But it's those little things, like as big of a Superman fan as I am, and I have to admit, I am a pretty big Superman fan. It's those levels of connectivity and thinking about how this character has existed. You know what I mean? Like, it's not, because I've had this conversation a bunch of times with different folks where the Kill Bill version of what Superman is when he's playing Clark Kent, I'm like, he's not playing Clark. Clark is who he is. Like, that's him.
Yes.
Like, now maybe he's doing it big. Like, he's not, like, Clark is not as clumsy. Like, that is purposefully done.
Right.
But the idea of what he's doing is just so that you don't pay attention to him in being Superman. That's not a critique, because he's a person.
He is the antithesis of Bruce Wayne.
Exactly.
Because Bruce Wayne is the secret identity.
That is absolutely, that's the character that he puts on.
Yes.
Batman is who he actually is.
Yes.
Superman is who Clark Kent puts on in order to do the thing that he wants to do. Like, that's, but I will say I adored that concept that he got kind of the inspiration of what to do carried over from what his Kryptonian parents said. The issue that I do have with it is it doesn't seem like his human parents had anything to do with it, which I do like the idea of. I don't
agree with that.
No?
Because they seem like genuinely good people.
Yes.
And he even said, we give you the tools
to do this.
To screw up.
But see, that's the thing. Like, that's a conversation I feel like Jonathan would have had long before 3 years in. That would have been like, Dad, I'm going to do this. And he's like, okay, here, let's have this conversation. But that is also me bringing in comic book,
and also, that's easy to say, but if you were to actually raise
Right.
a child who can,
Do all these things.
yes,
You'd be like,
you're not
"Man."
going to be like, no, you're going to do it this way.
He's
type
like, "Am
thing.
I? Yes, yes,
Yeah.
you are. Where's my kryptonite belt at? I
Yeah,
will
right.
take to you." I do think that there's a lot of this movie that is a direct antithesis of Man of Steel.
Yeah, without a doubt.
Vibe-wise, that was big. The presence of Pa Kent and some of the things that he says in terms of encouragement or defining how Clark should act, I think that was definitely a subtle but very specific. Like, we're not saying that. We're not doing this.
Right.
But it was interesting. It was very, very interesting. In terms of antagonists, how did you like Lex in this one?
I like the way he was written, and I really like Nicholas Hoult. I'm not completely sold as Lex, and one of the reasons is that he didn't have a grown-up voice.
That's okay.
Now,
okay.
I can understand if they're writing him as a spoiled brat, which
Right. He kind of is.
You get that.
Yeah.
But also he's a grown man.
Right. This was maybe that's a little too close to the Jesse Eisenberg like mentality of Lex, where he's just kind of like, I want what I want. And you're like, whoa. You should be more dangerous than that, and have a little bit more. I don't want to say gravitas, but like you're absolutely right. Like his presence is kind of petulant.
Yeah, and if you think in terms of like Gene Hackman,
Clancy Brown.
Brown, like Clancy Brown is my number 2 without a doubt.
Yes.
And Rosenbaum is right there with
fair.
3, and he had a grown up voice.
Yeah.
I may not be, the biggest fan of, how long they drew out the Smallville dynamic.
Sure.
But I always appreciated the fact that they did something that Star Wars was never able to do, and that was actually make me believe that two people that were going to be bitter enemies were going to be best friends.
Yeah. And they did that very, very well.
Yeah. And I think like when Nicholas Hoult is throwing a fit, he's very believable as that.
Yeah.
There was something about his voice.
I got you. Like it needed something deeper to kind of come through.
I hate to say more intelligent.
Got you.
But
got you. Less emotional at the very least. Yeah. It kind of reminds me of Ultron. When we saw the trailers for Avengers 2, there was a sinisterness to Ultron that you're like, oh my God, he's kind of creepy. But when you watch the movie, you're like, you're just kind of acting out. Like you're just like bad robot. Like just go stand in a corner. Like that's, and I totally understand what you mean by that one. I definitely hope, and obviously the way this kind of ends, it sets up the idea that maybe there is a much more sinister presentation of Lex to come, which I would be like, like he's not only because he had already this ill will, but you actually embarrassed him, and now where he goes with that should be something that's like really dangerous and dark, and I'm excited for that. I'm definitely excited for that. I definitely had more things that kind of like I tweaked my eye about, like, but overall it was an enjoyable experience. Like,
I think it's a good starting point for the DCU.
Yeah,
even though Creature Commandos technically is that, but I think they've set it up nicely. I think.
Yeah. I'm excited for the amount of fun that I think people are going to have watching this. I think that's going to be part of the big hook to how this grows.
Yeah.
It's going to happen because people do this. Is there an MCU equivalent that you would compare this movie to?
No.
Okay.
Maybe Ant-Man.
You know what? I don't think that's out of the reach. Yeah, no. I can be with that.
Yeah, because Ant-Man was always a little bit lighthearted to me anyway, and that's how this feels.
Okay. No, I totally can get with that. For me, it's Iron Man 2, and it's kind of the carryover thing. Like there's stuff that happened previously, which you kind of have to understand or have some interpretation of.
Yeah.
And then this picks up, tells you a quick little something or other that's entertaining, and then we'll just see what happens after that. So, but no, I think Ant-Man is a great one. Because again, you are dumped into a world that's fully realized. You got to see all these other parts and pieces and where he fits within this. I think that's very smart. That's a really good one. Would you watch it again?
Yeah, I'm gonna watch it in the next few days.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I think that's also a big one, for you, especially working in a theater, when you have the opportunity to see it anytime you really want to. Sometimes there's something you watch, you go, yep, and I've done that. I'm done.
Yeah.
I'm glad that this isn't one that you're like, yeah, no, I'm good. I definitely want to watch it again myself. We did watch it with other people, which I thought was a fun experience, especially because there was always that moment where I'm like, is everyone else enjoying this? When everyone clapped at the end, I was like, all right, cool.
Everyone was well behaved.
Yes,
and I think
they were.
That's the best thing you can ask for.
Good. Yeah, that's a really good one. Good call. Because there was like at the beginning, I was a little nervous because there were people that were definitely coming in late. You can help me be like, guys, what are we doing here?
Yeah.
What are we doing? And then I saw a couple of phones out like right as things were about to start, but didn't like catch it again. So I was like, oh yeah, they're locked in, they're focused, and that's a good thing. So yeah, not bad. I do wish that we did have much more of a James Gunn style soundtrack. The music reference that we got were great, and I wanted more.
That's probably one of my biggest disappointments in the movie is we didn't flat out get John Williams' theme.
I can totally understand that.
I mean, you get hints of it here and there. The credits are very OG.
Very much so.
I was really hoping at some point in time we would get like not the entirety of it, but just something that would make me go deep into it.
That's fair. So if I'm gonna be that guy, the logo bothered me. Like the way that they just kind of wrote out Superman, and yes, it's very much so a throwback to the original Donner Superman logo.
Yeah.
But I really wanted something that was a little bit more close to the comics, because it felt like, obviously, there's a leaning or inspiration of the Donnerverse version of it, but then it very clearly wasn't it.
Right.
And if you're gonna do it, do it. But if you're not going to do it, make it something that's yours. Because I think the biggest thing that it was missing was the connection between the logo of Superman and his actual logo. Because there wasn't anything that really kind of showed the connection between the two. We never, you just understand like that's Superman's logo, but there wasn't like a visual that showed that logo and the word Superman in the movie. And I really wanted there to be. Call it weird branding, but like it almost felt like they were two separate identity, sort of pieces.
Yeah.
So, but not bad. I mean, again, we're in the weeds. We're digging deep in order to have something to be like, I was really looking for this. Because can I say that I've ever actually looked for that in any of the other, Superman movies? I don't think that I have. Like, I don't know that I was looking for anything like that with Man of Steel. But then, was there a Man of Steel like nameplate that was shown? I don't remember that now. Was there a thing that was like Man of Steel? Like,
I think it was at the end.
Was it? Okay. All right. So I really can't remember now. But yeah. Okay. All right. Overall, enjoyable. Definitely will watch it again. And we're curious as to what you guys thought. So definitely let us know. We'll try to keep this spoiler free. So give us a rating between 1 to 10, what you thought, and give us just one thing that you liked about the movie and or loved, because I do want to try to spread some positivity. I think the internet's full of negatives.
Yeah.
And we don't need that. So give us your scale and something that you liked about the movie down below. We really want to hear from you guys. Once again, I'm Victor Dandridge, the hardest working man in comics.
And I'm Bill, and look up.